Hey folks, Matt from artoftheimage.com. Very, very exciting news. The internet is ablaze right now with news and articles and talk about the Sony a7R Mark III. We've got The Verge saying Sony's new a7R III is a direct shot at Canon's full-frame throne, like a slightly cheaper version of the outrageous A9. We've got Gizmodo saying Sony's crazy a7R Mark III is way more camera than you probably need, but that's what makes it so fun. We've got DP Review saying Sony's a7R III promises faster bursts, better focusing, and longer battery life. Significantly, those are three of the things that I think a lot of Sony shooters were actually looking for in this camera. We've got Engadget saying Sony's a7R III packs big improvements into a familiar package. It's no A9, but it's surprisingly close. So obviously we've got a lot of excitement online. That was just a few of the top headlines I saw right off the bat. A lot of people discussing this, on YouTube. And of course, I wanted to weigh in with my thoughts on it because it's a very impressive looking camera. I've actually gone through the specs, combed through them, looked through them to see what the differences are, what's new, what's interesting. And I've got 21 points, 21 things I want to share with you that are of note, interesting, or improvements that you should be aware of, that you should consider if you're looking at this camera, or could be reasons to look at this camera if you weren't already, and to weigh against what we have in the way of the competition, which would namely at this point be the Nikon D850. And I guess you could say if we're looking at high megapixel bodies, these Canon 5DSR, and I guess the coming Canon 5DSR Mark II, which we don't know a whole lot about at the moment. First and foremost, we've got the same sensor in here. Now this is the same sensor that was in the a7R Mark II. So the 42.4 megapixel sensor, it hasn't changed. But basically everything connected to it has, and that's what the important thing is here. Number one, we've got a faster burst rate for faster shooting. We've got improved autofocus, which is always welcome. We've got higher quality 4K video. So those are three of the top things right off the bat that jumped out at me, and all of these are very significant. A faster shooting rate, improved autofocus, and better 4K video. I think everybody would embrace those as some of the biggest advantages of this new camera. Now, the Sony a7R Mark III does this by way of improved readout circuitry as far as what we're getting out of the sensor and the improvements we're seeing from it compared to the previous generation. So with this improved circuitry, we're getting low noise, lower than the already low noise of the a7R Mark II. So we're getting better low read noise. We're getting improved dynamic range. So those two would be points 4 and 5. And we are also getting an improvement in rolling shutter, which some people had issues with on the a7R Mark II, and now we're getting an improvement on that. They're saying it's not as good as the phenomenal A9. It didn't get its label as an anti-distortion shutter like the A9 has, but it is better than the Mark II, which is a welcome improvement. The autofocus system, and this will be point 7, is still a hybrid autofocus system. It continues to have the 399 phase detect points, but now we've got 425 contrast detect points, which brings it up 25. It's 25 more than we had on the a7R Mark II, which is already an impressive camera, but now we've got a better camera, better autofocus system, more contrast detect points, and Sony's saying this is a better autofocus system, which I'm sure we'll see played out in the coming tests and whatnot that we're going to obviously see a lot of. Moving on to point 8, we have a lot of things coming over from the fabulous Sony A9. We've got the amazing 3.69 million dot OLED EVF. So the electronic viewfinder that is on the A9 has found its way into the a7R Mark III, and a big welcome addition there, because could be the best EVF in the business at the moment. Number 9, we've got a joystick for selecting AF points, much easier way to do that, and it seems to be already people liking that versus the older absence of that, I guess I should say, on the Mark II. We've also got an AF on button, so that would be 0.10, and a flash sync port. The flash sync port is huge. We've got a flash sync speed, it's worth noting on here, of 1/250th of a second. A lot of cameras, they're as low as 1/125th or 1/160th. We've got 1/250th. Yes, it could be better, but that's pretty decent compared to a lot of our competition. So much so that I'm going to call that number 11 out of our 21 points. Number 12, we've got a new movie record button in the sense that it's been put into a better, more accessible, more ergonomic friendly position. And then the other thing is that we've also got the option now to use the shutter button, which is a welcome addition. I like that Sony's done this. So that's number 12, is the movement of the record button for video, the movie record button, but also the fact that we can use that shutter button as well. So it's like a dual bonus here on 12. 14 is the fact that now we have 2 SD card slots. Always a welcome addition to have 2 slots, especially for me, of the same card. I like 2 of the same card. But Sony's done us one better, and this would be these would be points 13 and 14. So the 2 SD card slots, but then we also have one of those slots is actually UHS-2 capable. So it's capable of the faster cards that you can get, and which are better and faster cards. I'm not sure really why they didn't give us 2 of these, but at least they've given us 2 slots and 1 slot that is UHS-2 capable. Number 15, and a lot of people are really going to like this, especially if you've had complaints with the Sony menu system, is that we have a redesigned menu system. Basically, the one from the A9, or very similar to it, is making its way into the Sony a7R Mark III, and it's just a better all-around menu system. It's better organized. It's got that My Menu feature, and I think shooters are really going to like this new menu system on the Mark III. To dig a little bit into the point where we were talking about the autofocus, I just want to drill down on that a little more, why it is so significant, is Sony is saying we've got 2 times faster autofocus than the Mark II, or up to 2 times faster. They're even saying that for low light performance, we've got negative 3 EV with an f2 lens. So some very significant gains being claimed here by Sony for the Mark III, and it'll be really interesting to get this thing in the hands and playing with it and seeing just how much better it is than the Mark II. The Mark II is a very capable camera, so for Sony to be saying that it's that much better, this should be very interesting. Also of note that the AF algorithms, the autofocus algorithms, Sony's refined them and they've made it better subject tracking and improved the eye autofocus, the IAF that locks on your eye. That is also supposed to be improved and better than the Mark II. So I just wanted to drill into those points there on what actually is better on the autofocus, because those are significant points, and I'm really looking forward to see how much better this camera performs. 16 is going to be a biggie. Traditionally, Sony has issues. I say issues, but complaints from a lot of people on how weak the batteries are, how low the battery life is, how low the number of shots is that you can get out of a battery. But Sony has managed to put the larger NP-FZ100 battery, the same one that's in the A9, they've managed to cram this into the A7R Mark III. So now we're getting a huge boost in battery life. We're getting 530 shots using the EVF. We're getting 650 shots if you're using the LCD. Actually, when I read that, kind of thought, I would have thought that was backwards. I would have thought the LCD would have used more power, but still a significant improvement when you look at the 290 shot rating of the Mark II. Big welcome improvement over the Mark II. Then number 17 drills right into that further, is we've got an optional battery grip. It's the same one the A9 uses. It's the VGC3EM model. So it's the same one for the A9, and with that, you get double the battery life. So you get up to 1,300 shots using the grip with the 2 batteries, which is that's an awesome welcome addition, especially not just for shots for photography, but for video and how long you can shoot in video with 1 battery. We've got some brand new stuff that's entirely new. Points 18 and 19 both fit in that category. Number 18 is we've got a redesigned low vibration shutter. So basically what they've done is they've given us a shutter. They say it allows up to 10 frames a second bursts without the risk of shutter shock. So Gone is the problem of shutter shock at 10 frames a second with this new shutter. That's pretty impressive, and it remains to be seen, but any improvement here is welcome, and if it is this good, this will be very, very good. Number 19 is 2 USB ports. We've got a first USB port of a USB 3.1 with a Type-C connector. So this is pretty cool because not a lot of cameras have gone forward with a USB 3 port. Most of them are still stuck with USB 2. Now, the second port is a traditional micro USB jack, which still supports your existing remotes, your existing external battery packs, all of that. And I think that's why they left the second port, the traditional micro USB jack. And I think that's a really good way to attack this. Sony's given us the new tech of the USB 3 on one port, but then they've given us a second port that will support the older stuff so that we don't lose the connectivity with remotes and battery packs and existing accessories. So that's points 18 and 19, and some pretty significant ones there as well. Point 20 is a refined autofocus algorithm for video. So again, we're back to autofocus. The big news here is that they've made improvements on it. They've refined it so that the camera's a lot less likely to refocus on the background and pick up the background and go out of focus from your subject, which the Mark II had some issues with that. And this is going to be a huge improvement over the Mark II because a lot of users can just leave the camera in the complete auto AF mode now with face detection on, and we're getting basically, Sony's been number 2 to Canon for dual pixel AF. This is basically Sony's version of dual pixel AF, and an improvement in this is, it'll be interesting to see if we're on par with what we can get from the Canon dual pixel AF now. I'm hoping so, and I'm hoping more companies get on board with this, because right now Canon and Sony are the major leaders in this, and nobody's close to those two. 21 is another welcome video functionality. We've now got support for S-Log3, S-Gamut 3. So we've got flatter profiles, and it allows us to get more out of the camera's dynamic range, more dynamic range out of this camera, out of this amazing sensor when we're shooting video, which is definitely a welcome thing, especially for those of us that are doing more work like this that entails doing a lot of editing afterwards and putting tweaking the editing and tweaking what you can do in post, and you want that flatter profile to do everything after, to just eke out every little bit of goodness you can from that sensor, and every little bit of goodness and detail and dynamic range and low noise and whatnot that you can get out of this sensor in the video files, which would be really interesting to see if perhaps this is the new king of 4K video on the market now. Number 22 is a new feature to Sony, or at least to the Sony a7R Mark III. It's similar to what we've got on Pentax and Olympus cameras, where we've got the multi-shot mode. Basically what this is doing is it's shooting 4 images, and it moves the sensor around, I believe by 1 pixel, and takes these images so that it's ending up capturing a red, green, and blue, and it cancels out the bare color filter pattern so that we're getting essentially, the benefits, you may be saying, well, what's that going to do if you haven't used this? It's giving us an increase in color resolution, and it's giving us a reduction in noise and softness. So better color, lower noise, and a sharper image. Who doesn't want that? It has the advantage, they say, of about a 2-stop noise dynamic range benefit. So this is not insignificant. We're not talking about a little bit of advantage here. 2 stops of noise and dynamic range benefits. So 2 stops more dynamic range, 2 stops lower noise is how you can read into that. So that's actually 22. I thought I had 21. I got 22 points there. 22 features, 22, some of them new things, some of them coming in from the A9 that make this camera so interesting and such a powerful offering from Sony here. Lot to be discussed on this. I'm curious to know what you guys think of this. What do you think of these points that I'm pointing out? Is there something very significant you think I've missed you'd like to add? Leave it in the comments below. Let's discuss this camera. I think this is a powerhouse of a camera. I think this is taking a direct shot, as a couple of the other websites had said, at the Canon throne. It's definitely going to be a direct competitor with the Nikon D850, and for some people may be a better all-around camera because it may be, as I hinted earlier, the best video camera out there now. What do you guys think of it? Let me know in the comments below. Let's discuss it. The A7R Mark III. It's pretty interesting, to say the least. I think is a pretty impressive offering. Let's hear what you guys have to say. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon here at artoftheimage.com.